I bet you money that if you have Claude open right now, it feels confusing because there's so many different options and tools and features and you don't know where to start. So if you're not really a techie person, but you want to know how to use Claude and make use of it, this video is for you because I'm going to run you through the complete map of Claude without all the heavy tech jargon. So I promise you that by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what every feature inside Claude is. You'll be familiar with the interface and you'll know exactly how to use it for whatever it is you're doing. The first thing we need to discuss when it comes to Claude AI is where do we actually use it? Well, there's 3 ways of using it and actually a 4th one. The first one is just using the web version, which is Claude.ai. You access this directly in the browser, log in into your account, start chatting, do the work, and that is it. This is the easiest if you're on the move or if you're using someone else's laptop and you just need to get your hands on Claude. The good thing about using the web version of Claude is that you can use it from anywhere or any kind of device. You don't need to install anything locally. It's pretty much plug and play. That's it. The downside is you can't run anything locally on your machine if you're trying to fix something or build something on your computer directly. So as long as you're using it for drop in and drop out, this is perfectly fine and it's probably all you need at this stage. The second way to use it is via the mobile app. Now, Anthropic have been doing great work on the mobile app over the last few months and they've greatly improved it. And they're actually investing heavily at the moment to develop the Cowork and more in-depth type solutions on mobile, which before weren't really available. So at the moment, if you want to use Claude on the go, you just need to log into your account, download the app, log into your account, and you can pretty much use it. This is great if you need to do some light work, nothing too extensive. You can also use it with dispatch and do a bit of light code work, with a caveat that it tends to disconnect quite often, unfortunately. The third way, and the most reliable in my opinion, is using Claude Desktop. So this is where you actually install an app into your computer and you can access the entire suite that Claude offers at the moment right on your machine. So what this does is basically everything that the web version and mobile version do, but supercharged with way more options. When you install it locally on your computer, as in you download the app on Mac or on Windows, you can do a lot of stuff directly on your machine. So for example, it can create files directly on your hard drive, it can connect to your Google Drive, it can use a lot of MCP connectors. This is when we're starting to get into that more advanced territory. This is where you also start using Cowork, which is a really powerful tool, and I'll get into it in the second half of the video. So basically you want to download the desktop app when you mean more serious business and you want access to everything that Claude has to offer. On the desktop app, you have access to everything. The chat, Cowork, Code, pretty much everything you need is on there. And I mentioned the 4th way of using it. This is in terminal. This is more advanced, so if you're not very technical, I don't really recommend this route. So if you want to do a lot of code work, this is where you use Claude Code in your terminal directly. It's very powerful if you know all the shortcuts and you can move quickly like developers do. But if you're not very tech savvy, it can be quite a bit. Personally, I don't really like to use terminal a lot, simply because I just don't like the interface, and as a designer I like a nice user experience. So I tend to use Code in the desktop app more, but of course there are different ways of using it in terminal as well. If you want more advanced stuff and if you want more control over the efficiency and speed of the model, you can alternate easier in terminal. So to reiterate, if you don't have the Claude Desktop app already, I strongly encourage you to pause the video and go download it, and you'll thank me later. So we know the different ways of using Claude, but now let's talk about the different models we have inside Claude AI. At the moment, Anthropic offers 4 different types of model. These are Haiku, Sonnet, Opus, and the big one, Fable. So let's discuss when do you use each of them and how do you switch between them. So the first model, this is the lightest that uses the least amount of tokens. So if you're on a lower tier subscription or the free one, Haiku is the one you want to use for light work, writing email, really simple stuff like that. What's the benefit of using Haiku? It's fast, it's lightweight, doesn't cost a lot to run, so you get more bang for your buck. But on the downside, it's speed over depth. So Haiku is fast, but it cannot compute really heavy tasks or help you with really intricate analysis or code work. The next step up from Haiku is Sonnet. This is pretty much, I like to call it your workhorse. It tends to be the default, and it should be. Sonnet does most of the lifting. It's not the most complex, but it's sort of mid-tier. So if you're not sure if Sonnet is the one for you, I recommend starting with it as a default. Give it a task, and if it cannot give you exactly what you want or is not as detailed, then you bump it up. Sonnet does use more tokens than Haiku, so it's a bit more costly. Then we have Opus. It's a really powerful model, and this is when we go into the big guns territory. Opus is much more capable and can do much deeper thinking and analysis, the same as more detailed code work. So if you're working on something really heavy and serious that requires a lot of compute, processing, analysis, multiple streams of thinking combined into one, or debating, or like really intense stuff, Opus is the one you want to go with. Now that being said, Opus does eat up your tokens very quickly. So if you're on a lower subscription, I recommend using Opus carefully. So tread carefully around this one. Only use it on the more intense work. And again, if you've tried Sonnet and it doesn't seem to give you what you want, bump it up to Opus and it will handle it much better, especially when it comes to multi-step analysis and solutions. And the last, which is, I call it God mode. This is Fable 5. There's been a lot of controversy around Fable 5 with the US government getting involved. At the moment, Fable 5 is publicly available on the Anthropic subscription. Now, when do we use Fable? Fable is when you need to enter your God mode. Your deepest strategy, your more advanced projects. So anything that requires really intense strategizing, analysis. If you're developing an app or software, a SaaS, anything like that, Fable, you want to use it to review your entire code base. So it's only for the overarching heavy lifting strategy. Never use Fable for anything simple like writing emails or generating blog posts, anything like that. It's like using the rocket to go to the grocery store, and we don't want that. Fable is for when you need to go to the moon. That's when you use it. I would say, to reiterate, for most people and for regular work, Fable 5 is overkill. Chances are you're never really going to have to use it. Opus is your best bet for more complex work, Sonnet for anything intermediate or like average type work, and Haiku is when you want something cheap and fast. All of the models are included in Claude at the moment. Specifically, if you're on the desktop app, you can also change the effort level on them. What does this mean? You can put the effort on low mode if you want something to be processed quickly and fast and quite inexpensively. Even for Opus, if you put it on low effort, it will not be as thorough, but it will be much faster and give you the answer pretty much instantly. But if you put it on extra or maximum effort, it will take a longer time to think and analyze, and everything else is doing in the background, but the answer will be much more efficient and more in-depth. Or if you're using Claude Code, you can also put it in Ultra Code, which is pretty much putting on steroids. It's really intense and it takes quite a long time to process whatever task you're giving it, but it's much more complex and in-depth. Okay, so we've covered the different models and the different ways of accessing Claude AI. Now, what are the different ways of actually working with Claude AI? I like to break it down into 3 different modes. The first is chat, that we all know and we've been using for years now. This is just the chat box where you go, you ask a question, or you give a short instruction, a prompt, and it responds back or gives you what you want. It's quite surface level, is how we've all been using AI since it came out. So it's not very complex, and you have to do a lot of back and forth. Prompt it again, wait for the answer, prompt it again, wait for the next step, and so on. So chat is quite limited when it comes to more intense work or multi-step workflows. Or for example, if you're a blogger, you could use chat if you wanted to just read through your blog post and see if you have any grammar mistakes, or if you've missed out some ideas, or to give you ideas on how you can improve the blog post. So in a way, Chat mode is Claude talking to you. The next level is Claude doing things for you. This is when we go into Claude Cowork, a really powerful tool that basically allows Claude to become almost like an assistant or employee. So if you want Claude to do something whilst you're focusing on something else, Cowork is the one you want to use because you don't need to re-prompt it after every single answer. Basically, the way Cowork works, you tell it the end goal and what you're trying to achieve. You give it a task, and most of the time you want to use it if you have something multi-step, so more complex. Let's say you're analyzing a spreadsheet. After that, you wanted to format it and output it in some sort of way, something really specific. What Cowork does is it takes your instructions. If it needs more clarification, it asks you, just like an assistant would, right? And then it generates a list of tasks or a to-do list. And as you're working on something else, Cowork is working on this in the background. So it's literally like having a side-by-side colleague that works on things with you at the same time. So if in chat you would say something like, write me a response to this email, and you paste in the email, with Cowork you can do something like, access my email, see what unanswered emails I have, and draft a response for every single one of them. Then give them to me in a Word document. Cowork would generate a to-do list. The first one would be access your inbox, see what unread emails they are, read through them, generate a draft response, read back through it and ensure it's exactly what it needs, and then give the file to you as a Word document because that's what you've asked for. So in this case, you don't need to prompt it at every single step. If you were to do this in chat, you would have to go find the emails yourself, copy it, paste it into chat, tell it to write you a response and give some details, and then do that for every single email. But Cowork handles that for you. So instead of talking to Claude, you start reviewing it, and this is when you become an editor. You're working alongside it because Claude is doing things for you. The third way of working with Claude, and this is the most advanced level, is Claude Code. Now, even though a lot of people think Claude Code is only for programming and designing apps for you, that's actually not entirely true. Claude Code is very powerful, and it can even help you with analysis and execute multi-level workflows for you. There are many different ways of using Claude Code, but my favorite is using it to build stuff. This could be anything from building a website to building a multi-level workflow, building AI agents that do things for you automatically, handling multi-level code work, scanning through entire code bases, interpreting reports, and doing multi-level analysis work on that. So Claude Code is when you need serious operations and more serious analysis and output. The best way of using Claude Code, and this is a pro tip that I actually got from an Anthropic engineer, is to get Claude to interview you. So open Claude Code in your desktop app and say, I'd like to build this sort of website. Ask me any question you need in order to write the best possible set of instructions or prompt to build this website for me. And then Claude will start interview you and be like, what sort of business is it? Do you have a color scheme? Tell me more about your branding. Do you have logos? Do you have assets you want me to include in the website? So this is when Claude starts doing the heavy lifting for you. And after you answer all of those questions, Claude can start doing the work, and it will update you when it's ready and show you the website as an HTML or whatever it is, and then give you instructions on how to get it live. It's pretty simple, and don't be afraid to ask it even silly questions like, okay, my website is designed now, how do I get it online? Because it can guide you through it. All right, so we've gone through Chat, Cowork, and Code, but now how do we supercharge Claude AI? This is where Anthropic have developed some really nifty and useful tools that pretty much allow you to supercharge Claude and personalize it to a level where you don't need to repeat the same set of information again and again. How do we supercharge Claude and take it from basic user to advanced? Well, this is when we start using all of these extra tools that Claude AI offers. I like to break these down into two categories. The first is the one that allows Claude to know you better and the way you work and the way your business operates. Under this category, we have stuff like memory, skills, and projects. Let's talk about the first one, memory. This is a really powerful aspect of Claude, and it's what allows Claude to remember things you've told it in the past. So if you don't have this enabled already, I want you to go into Settings, Capabilities, and Enable Memory. Now, this doesn't mean that the model will use your information for its training. What it does is it remembers specific crucial information about you, and it uses it in future conversations and projects. So for example, if you talk to Claude about your business and what you do, what your future plans are your strategy, it can remember that. And next time you discuss about some new idea or a marketing promotion for your business, it has all that context already, so you don't have to repeat it twice. And this saves you a lot of time. The second one is projects. This is where you start organizing all of your projects and chats. So it's almost like on your laptop, you create different folders for different things. You could have one for marketing, one for social media, one for accounting, one for receipts, that sort of thing. So in Claude, you can create different types of projects, so you can keep everything nicely organized under all of these different files. But it goes beyond just organization. Each project can be prompted and instructed in a different way. So every project can have its own dedicated files. Let's say under marketing, you can have stuff like your logos, your branding, your social media strategy, that sort of thing. Under accounting, you can have your financials or your receipts or expenses, everything like that, and a custom set of instructions that can be and should be completely different across all of your projects. So the instructions is where you tell Claude how to operate within the parameters of that project. And I'll do another video discussing specifically on how to properly set up your projects. Let me know if you're interested in that. And now the third one, and one of my favorite things ever about using Claude, is something called skills. This is where you teach Claude how to do something in a specific way, and it remembers it. So the next time you want to do a similar task, it already knows how to perform that task because you've already taught it. So now, what is the difference between a project and a skill? A project is almost like your context and your window of information and everything that Claude needs to know about that specific part of your business or life. A skill is used for a repeatable action, something that you need to perform again and again. An example for me would be I created a skill that helps me write my newsletters because it's always a very similar format with tips and tricks and news and that sort of stuff. So every week is the same action, but the information is different. So what I do is when you have the skill created, you can start a new conversation or a task with Claude or Cowork, anything, and you can tell it to use that specific skill. You can give it a name and just give it the context, the information, the new stuff that you want to add into that repeatable action. And then Claude uses the knowledge it already has as the skill, it applies it to the new information you gave it, and it generates this, whatever it is you want it to generate. Skills can also be used in code. So this is really useful if you have a specific way of writing code, or you have specific guidelines for your branding and all your websites, you want them designed in a specific way. So one way to create a skill that's super simple is to literally tell Claude, these are my sets of instructions. Now, based on all of this, create a skill for me. And then it will tell you, this is the skill. You can ask to review it and then reiterate it. So once you've created the skill, if you want to edit it, let's say some of the information has already changed, you need to go under Customize, and at the bottom of that tab, you will see Skills, Connectors, and Plugins. So under Skills, you will have all of your skills you've created, and this is where you can click it, and it opens it automatically, and you can start editing it. It's worth noting that you don't need to create all your skills from scratch, and you can find them online to download. Anthropic have some really good skills that are already built for stuff like marketing or content creation, but you can also find them created by other people online, which are really useful. I downloaded one on marketing and it's really brilliant. It covers many different aspects of marketing. If you're interested, let me know and I'll drop it in the comments below. Now, there are two more tools within Claude that I didn't include with the others, and that's because they have a different way of using them. This would be plugins and connectors. A plugin is basically, it's almost like a skill that you can share across different teams and different accounts. So it's very similar to a skill, but the difference is that you can also share it beyond just sharing the text within the skill. Personally, because I'm a solopreneur, I don't really use plugins, but let me know if you'd like to learn more about that. Chances are most people won't really use plugins because there are different ways of getting around it. And connectors, these are your MCPs, which are what allows Claude to communicate with other tools. So for example, if you want Claude to be able to access your Gmail account, you need to install the Gmail connector. Or if you use Notion as your CRM or just for ideas and you want Claude to be able to access those ideas directly, you need to install the Notion connector. Now, all of these connectors are available online as part of Claude, and there's many different MCPs out there that you can just download, plug and play, and that's it. You just need to configure them, and they're really simple to use. Now, the second level of supercharging Claude, I like to call this the deliver and run, because this is what allows Claude to execute specific steps for you. The first one would be artifacts. What are artifacts? Well, they're basically like an interface that you create that performs a repeatable action for you. So you see a bit of that pattern. It's very similar to a skill, except the difference is a skill runs within Claude Chat or Cowork or Code. So it works within that interface. But an artifact has its own interface that you can access via Claude in the artifacts section, and you use it there directly. So an example would be, let's say you need to analyze spreadsheets every month in a specific way, and they're always a similar format. You can create this artifact that's pretty much like a skill with a nice interface that you just access there directly. So you can make it that you upload your spreadsheet in there, just drag and drop, and then you click a button and it starts analyzing it for you. And every time you do it, it analyzes it in the same way. So the output is always consistent month after month. Now let's talk about routines. Here we're going into more advanced territory and also agentic AI. So what are routines? Routines are basically a pre-programmed way that allows Claude to perform an action, a repeatable action at a specific time. So if you need a specific repeatable action performed that has a similar type of output at a specific moment in time, routines is what you need. The most common use scenario for most clients I've worked with is inbox scanning and replies and drafting, that sort of thing. So you can set up routines that every single week they scan through all your newsletters that you get through, and they give you a summary of the important stuff that are applicable to your business. Could be stuff like industry news or AI news, anything that's applicable to you. Another use case would be to get it to scan your inbox and any kind of client meetings or anything like that that you have scheduled. It can generate a list and put everything in your calendar for you. So it's almost like having an assistant that performs the same kind of tasks every single Monday or whenever you want to set it up. Now let's talk about Claude Dispatch. Dispatch is basically a way of communicating with Claude on your laptop from another device like your mobile phone. I like to use it a lot when I'm away from my desk and I need a specific file on my computer. I get Claude to access my files and pull the specific file for me and give me a summary of it, or email it to me, something like that. This is with the caveat that in order for Dispatch to work, your laptop needs to be on, because obviously if one side is off, your mobile has nothing to connect to. I do get the feeling with Anthropic investing more heavily in Cowork for mobile that they're also working on Dispatch. So chances are that it's going to get better and better as time progresses. Let's give it a few months and I'm sure it's going to be flawless. So now we know everything there is to know about how to use Claude, which part to use for which type of action, and how to customize it so it works best for you and your business. So to summarize, next time you open Claude, let's say in desktop mode, because I hope you've installed it by now, you have a question, use chat. You needed to do something while you're doing something else, use Cowork. You need to build something, use Code. You wanted to perform a repeatable action with your supervision, use skills. You want to pretty much drag and drop into something without even telling it a single thing with no prompt needed. Use artifacts. You needed to perform a repeatable action every single day or every single week. This is when you use routines. And you need to keep an eye on Claude from afar, from your mobile. This is when you use dispatch. And I hope you also remember the different effort levels and all the different models and when to use each of them. So just to recap, light and quick and fast and inexpensive work, Haiku. Middle tier, Sonnet. Slightly more advanced, more complex operation, Opus. God tier, Fable. And effort level, customize it to your needs. Start with medium or high and then take it to max, or in code, take it to ultra code if you need to. It's worth noting that the more complex your use of Claude, the more expensive it is. So this is where it's important to test it out with a subscription and different tiers. I like to advise everyone to start with the Pro, which is I believe around $20 a month. And if you keep hitting that usage limit, then you want to bump it up to the next, which is the Max 5X, and it's about $100 a month. It's not the most affordable for everyone, but it is a lot of compute work. Or if you want to keep your costs low and stay on the Pro for $20 a month, make sure you use all the tips I've given you. Use Haiku, use it on low effort mode, and use Claude strategically. For strategy work, use Opus or Fable. And for really simple everyday stuff, use Haiku on low effort mode. So I hope by the end of this video, you feel more well equipped to use Claude and navigate it and know how to use every single one of those tools that Anthropic have built for us. And if you remember and you're not sure what to use for what, I've made a really simple cheat sheet that you can download by accessing the link below. And in case you forget when to use what, just have a quick glance at the cheat sheet and you'll remember very quickly. So now that you know how to use Claude in all of these different ways, tell me, if you're an existing user, what are you most excited to try? And if you're a new user, what's the first thing you're going to try? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one of them, and this informs what the next video will be about. Or if you have any suggestions or questions, let me know and I'll make a video about it.